Hey there everybody, welcome back. This is part 6 for my Dominaria United set review for Limited and Constructed. Today we're going to be covering colorless and artifact cards. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it and continue the series. Our first card up is actually the only colorless card in the set that's not an artifact, and it's a Mythic rare. It's a Karn Living Legacy. For 4, a legendary planeswalker with 4 loyalty. You can +1 its loyalty to create a tapped Power Stone token, and that token it's an artifact with tap to add colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. Or you can -1 loyalty and pay any amount of mana, look at that many cards from the top of your library, then put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then the Karn's ultimate is a -7 loyalty. You get an emblem with tap and untapped artifact you control. This emblem deals 1 damage to any target. So at first glance, this card seems like it requires a lot of work to get to work, but it has all the tools within itself to make things work. Even though you can only spend the Power Stone mana to cast artifact spells, doesn't say you can't use it to for activated abilities. So it looks like you'd be able to -1 Karn and use mana from the Power Stones as part of the payment for that activated ability for Karn. So not bad. And then also with its emblem, you'd be able to tap those untapped Power Stones to deal damage to any target. So I like it. If it showed up in a draft pack or sealed deck, I would have it in the deck just due to the fact it's a colorless planeswalker. It can go in any deck, so I think that's pretty solid. I'm gonna give it I think I'll give it a high rating for limited, and due to the fact that you can dig as deep as you want to into your deck to find a card and put it into your hand, that's pretty decent. So I like it. I think I'll give it a high rating for constructed as well. Might be a little generous, but we'll see how it plays out. It might just be too much work to get it to work, but at first glance, I think it's a workable card. So, and I think it'll definitely do well in Commander too. So with the way those games flow, you'd have a little bit more time to work with it. But I think it's a decent utility card for what it costs and what it does. Next up, we have our first artifact. We'll start with commons here. Automatic Librarian for 3 colorless, or 3 generic, if that's what it is now. It's an artifact creature construct for 3/2 power and toughness. When an automatic Librarian enters the battlefield, scry 2. Not bad. I mean, it's a body. Lets you scry 2. I think it's okay. I'm gonna give it a low rating for limited. You might, depending on what you're playing, you might be able to find something better. But if you just need an extra body, another creature to have in your deck, I think it's something you could put in there. I'd probably put at the high end of the low level. Same thing for constructed. I think it just hits a low level there. It seems like it'd be more suited to play in a limited deck or sealed deck than anything else. Next artifact is Meteorite. For 5, it's an artifact. When Meteorite enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. Add 1 mana. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. This is a reprint from previous core sets, I believe M15 and Origins, and then it's probably been in a few Commander sets. But it's kind of a laughable card because a lot of people, I remember saying it's just a bad card. Yeah, it's pretty expensive, but I actually won a sealed deck game with it, so I kind of got a soft spot for it in my heart. The fact that I was able to get my opponents down low with the 2 damage and then use the mana rock to cast a creature that ended up winning the game for me. So it's got a soft spot for me, but it has been downshifted in rarity too. I believe it used to be an uncommon, so now it's common. So that does help for your mana fixing. It's good mana rock in that sense. So because it's a 5 mana though, Yeah, it's a little pricey for it. I'm going to give it a low rating, but it's right on that line between low and mid. I wouldn't mind playing it in the deck if I needed some mana fixing and some more removal if I was short on removal. So, but it's right there in that low spot. If you're able to get better alternatives, you'd probably go with those over this. Same thing for Constructed, low rating. I think this would do better in Commander than anything else for Constructed. Beyond that, I don't see it being used in many other Constructed decks. Next common is Salvaged Mana Worker for 2. It's an artifact creature construct with a 1/3 power and toughness. Can pay 1 generic, add 1 mana of any color, activate only once each turn. So it lets you filter your mana for one activation. Yeah, it's okay. It's not bad. I think with if you need it, it's something you could use, but beyond that, it might be just a card that you get passed to you late in the draft or have to use in a sealed deck just to fill a slot. But if you have better alternatives, you probably go with those. Just due to the fact that looks like the mana fixing in this set is pretty good too. So I think that knocks this down a few pegs. I'll give it a low rating for limited. Same thing for Constructed. There's just better stuff in Constructed. So its home would probably be in some type of limited deck. Next one is Shield Wall Sentinel for 4. It's an artifact creature golem, 1/3 power and toughness with defender. When Shield Wall Sentinel enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with defender, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. I think it's a little pricey for its power and toughness, even though it does play up the defender deck type. I think because of that, because of the 4 mana cost, I can't see going higher than a low rating for it. Although it does let you search up one of your best defender cards, so that's something to keep in mind. But outside of that, I can't see much use of it. It'd probably be a card I'd put in the sideboard, or just ultimately wouldn't make my deck cut unless I was playing a defender deck. Same thing for Constructed. Just better options available. So this card will probably do the best in limited, something like sealed deck or something. I believe this is our final common, Vanquisher's Axe for 1. It's an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 for equip cost of 2. So yeah, this is your bread and butter equipment. 1 to cast, 2 to equip, gives a creature a +2/+0 bonus. It's an artifact. It might have uses in that sense. Might go well with using it with Karn or something like that. But beyond that, can't see it getting much play unless you need something with some combat tricks or an artifact or equipment or a deck or something like that you built around with it. So I think I'm gonna give it a low rating for both limited and Constructed. Just pretty generic for what it does. But you're fighting somebody and you need a weapon. This is something you could probably slot into your deck if you have no other options. So we're on to the uncommons now for artifacts. Hero's Heirloom for 2. It's an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. As long as the equipped creature is legendary, it has trample and haste. Equipped for 2. Not bad. Looks like there's gonna be a lot of legendary creatures in this set for limited and to use in Constructed. So that's pretty good that it gives your legendary creature trample and haste. And in Commander, that really shines. So that's fairly decent. I think I want to give it a low rating. It's right on that border between low and mid for limited. Just due to the fact you're not sure how many legendary creatures you're going to get in order to maximize the use of this card. Because if you don't have a legendary creature, it just basically gives a creature +2/+1. In Constructed, though, I like it as a mid rating. I think your options are more plenty in Constructed, just due to the fact that you're able to add legendary creatures as you see fit. And then, of course, in Commander, obviously your commander is always going to be there for you. And as soon as you're able to get it onto the battlefield, you can equip it and give your commander trample and haste or any other legendary creature you have in the deck. So I think it's pretty decent for constructed. Kind of average for limited, though. Next one is Inscribed Tablet for 1. It's an artifact. You can pay 1 and tap it to sacrifice Inscribed Tablet. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put a land card from among them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you didn't put a card into your hand this way, draw a card. Interesting. So it lets you dig for mana and help you in that sense to get a land card. And if you don't hit the land card, it lets you draw a card. Yeah, I like it. I think this could be helpful in a multicolor deck, and also just to keep you on schedule for your land drops. So sneaky good. I'm going to give it a mid rating for limited. For constructed, I think I'll go low with that. I think it's just unless you're playing a commander deck, I don't see it being used as standard or explorer, pioneer. Just due to the fact that there's other cards available that this card could occupy as far as a slot in your deck. So hard to say, but I could be wrong. But I think for now, initial impressions are low in constructed, but mid level in limited. Next up is Joda's Codex for 5. It's an artifact. It has domain 5 and tap it to draw a card. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each basic land type among lands you control. Yeah, that's pretty good. If you're playing a domain deck and you have all basic land types, it's basically just costs 5 to cast, but once you have it on the battlefield, you just tap it to draw a card. So that's pretty good. I think I'll give it a mid rating for limited. And for constructed, yeah, it's 5 mana cost is kind of steep. I'm going to say it just barely makes the mid-level rating in constructed. In something like standard or pioneer or modern, I don't see it getting much use, but unless you have a dedicated domain deck. But in commander, I could see this being in a deck and being used effectively, even if you don't have all 5 basic land types. If you're just tapping it for 1 or 2, or paying 1 or 2 mana and tapping it to draw a card, that's fairly decent. So and in commander, as long as you have some kind of reliable card draw, that'll help keep you in the game. Gives you some juice to survive the multiplayer melee. So go mid across the board for that, for Joda's Codex. Next up is Relic of Legends for 3. It's an artifact. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Tap an untapped legendary creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. It's pretty cool. This is all about multicolor stuff, so it's lets you add mana of any color. That's a good mana rock for commander, and it pretty much turns all your legendary creatures into mana dorks that you can add mana of any color. So that's pretty solid. I'm going to give it a mid rating for limited, and I like it enough with what it does. I'll give it a high rating for constructed. I could see this getting use in constructed with all these legendary creatures running around and stuff. Even if you only have a few legendary creatures in your deck and you have this in your deck, you're able to you turn them into mana dorks aside from it being able to tap for mana. So that's pretty good, and would fit in nicely with Joda from the multicolor cards. And in commander, yeah, this is a solid card too. Just another added ability for whatever you use as your commander as well. So going legendary tribal would be crazy with this card. So pretty solid. I like it. I think this might be our last uncommon. Walking Bulwark for 1. It's an artifact creature golem, 03 defender. You can pay 2, and until end of turn, target creature with defender gains haste, can attack as though it didn't have defender, and assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Activate only as a sorcery. Yeah, it's not bad. It's one of the better defender cards I've seen in the set. I think because of that, and they're really pushing the defender archetype, I think that's fairly decent for it. I'll give it a mid rating for limited. And I think I'll do the same thing for constructed. There's some defender deck types you can play in Pioneer or Commander that would really benefit from this card, and having at least one of those in there might be pretty decent. I mean, this card itself, you could pay 2 and it could attack and deal 3 damage, so it's not bad. I like it. So I think mid across the board for this card. I think we're on to the rares now. Yep. I believe there's only one rare for artifacts. It's a Golden Argosy. Before, it's a legendary artifact vehicle. It has a 3/6 power and toughness when it's an artifact creature. It says, whenever Golden Argosy attacks, exile each creature that crewed it this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And it has a crew cost of 1. This would be better if it let them return to the battlefield untapped, but I could see it being used for ETB cards for creatures that give you benefit when they enter the battlefield. So it's kind of a pseudo way to blink them, but 3/6. Yeah. And it has a crew 1, but it doesn't have any kind of evasion or anything like that. I'll go mid for limited, mid for constructed. I kind of need to see it in action to warrant a higher rating. I do like the fact that it exiles one of your a crewed creature and brings it back at the end of turn to re-trigger its ETB ability, but beyond that, not much else. I think there are better vehicles out there, so kind of mid for it, unless you're playing some kind of dedicated vehicle deck or artifact deck. So we're on to the Mythics now. First Mythic is Karn Silex for 3, legendary artifact. Karn Silex enters the battlefield tapped. Players can't pay life to cast spells or to activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. You can pay X and tap it, exile Karn Silex, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less, activate only as a sorcery. Yeah, this is a pretty good card. For 3 mana. Comes into play tapped, so it's similar to the Nevanural's Disc from the original Magic set in that sense, but as soon as it comes into play, it shuts down any of the Phyrexian mana or the Defiler abilities that are in all 5 colors with the Defiler creatures, so that's it's a nice foil for that. And of course, it's a board wipe when you pay X mana. In that sense, it kind of reminds me of Pernicious Deed, or because you have to pay X mana and stuff. But yeah, it destroys everything, all non-land permanents. So too bad. And also, you have to exile it, so you can't bounce it back to your hand in response to its own ability. So not bad, pretty decent. I'm gonna give it a high rating. Limited, and since it only destroys non-land permanents and doesn't exile them, I think I'll stick with high in constructed as well. I do like the fact though that it does cancel out the Defiler abilities and also cancels out Phyrexian mana, and also paying life to activate abilities. So yeah, I think high for that card. Next up is Timeless Lotus for 5, legendary artifact. Timeless Lotus enters the battlefield tapped. Tap to add Wooburg, white, blue, black, red, green. Yeah, this is solid. This is going to see a lot of play in Commander and other constructed decks, all the 5 color decks. So pretty decent. Because of the theme of Dominaria United, I like what it does. I'm going to give it a high rating for limited. It's pretty much just a fountain of mana for you. You know, when you tap it, you can add one of each mana type, and might not use it all the mana all the time, but it's a solid mana rock in that sense. Think of it this way: it's Also, the Meteorite has a 5 mana cost, and it's a mana rock. It taps for only 1 mana of any color. This taps for 1 mana of each color. So that's pretty solid. I'll give it a high rating for constructed as well. I think it'll see a lot of play in Commander, and could see some play in Standard, and pay for a lot of those 5 color activated abilities. Card that comes to mind is an old card from Legacy, and you probably see it in Commander, is Legacy Weapon. This pays for his activated ability just off the bat, so pretty decent. Something I would be happy to have in my deck. I believe this is the last Mythic. Weatherlight completed for 2, legendary artifact vehicle. When it's an artifact creature, it has a 5/5 power and toughness with flying. As long as Weatherlight completed has 4 or more Phyresis counters on it, it's a Phyrexian creature in addition to its other types. And then whenever a creature you control dies, put a Phyresis counter on Weatherlight completed, then draw a card if it has 7 or more Phyresis counters on it. If it doesn't, scry 1. Not bad. So it really doesn't do anything until you have 4 Phyresis counters on it. But between 4 counters and 7 counters, it lets you scry 1 when a creature dies. And after that, you'll be drawing cards if it has 7 or more Phyresis counters on it. And of course, once it has the 4 counters on it, it becomes a flying artifact creature, 5/5. So not bad, pretty decent. Yeah, I think I'd play it in my my limited deck. It pretty much gets the counters off death triggers, so, and it's an early play too, so you'll be able to play that early and get the benefit of when creatures die. When one of your creatures die, you'll get a counter for it, and that'll end up activating it once it has 4 or more. I'm gonna give it a high rating for limited. Same thing for constructed. I think it might be a card that we'll see in play, just due to the fact that it doesn't have a crew cost, and it's just 2 to throw onto the battlefield. And then once it has 4 or more counters on it, it becomes a creature. And once it has 7 or more, when a creature dies, you're drawing cards. So pretty good. I like that. I think we'll keep it at high for constructed and for limited. So that is it for the colorless and artifact cards. Kind of a shorter video today. We just have one chapter left to go, and that's for covering lands, and I'll have that up shortly. And then we'll be done for the complete set review for Dominaria United. So tune in for the final episode, and check out the land review. And until then, have a good one, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.